with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare. Side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Thank you.
Please be seated. The Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and Economy, THA, Councillor Sitika Williams O. The Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, THA, Mrs. Melissa James Guy. The Executive Director of the TTBS, Mr. Jose Trejo. Manager, Energy Efficiency, THA, Ms. Melanie Trim. Manager of the Implementation Division, TTBS, Mr. Gerald Maxwell. Specially invited guests, fellow staff of the TTBS. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Stakeholder Consultation meeting on the National Compulsory Standard, TTCS 2021 energy labeling, compact fluorescent lamps, CFLs, and light emitting diodes, LED. We have an interesting and informative agenda for today. Thank you for being here with us, the TTBS.
Okay, so we will start with the agenda with Mr. Jose Trejo. Mr. Jose Eduardo Trejo, a Belizean national, has spent the last 22 years as a public officer serving the public of Belize. Prior to joining the service, he worked at the Central Bank of Belize as an economist, having direct responsibility for the compilation of Belize balance of payment statistics. Throughout his career, he has worked with several government ministries. These include the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, Trade, Commerce and Industry, Finance, Economic Development, and most recently, Agriculture, Food Security, and Enterprise. During the period 2015 to 2017, he served as a chairman and coordinator of the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality, headquartered in Barbados, and the Sub-Regional Central American CAMET grouping of the Inter-American Metrology System, respectively. Mr. Trejo previously served as the director of the Belize Bureau of Standards during the period 2007 to 2023. In February of 2023, he assumed duty as the executive director at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Please help me welcome Mr. Jose Eduardo Trejo.
Thank you, Ria, for that kind introduction. The Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and Economy, Councillor Sitika Williams Orr. The Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guy. Manager, Energy Efficiency, THA, Ms. Melanie Trim. Manager of the Implementation Division, TTBS, Mr. Gerald Maxwell. Special invited guests, fellow staff of TTBS. On our way to the venue today, I was joking with Mr. Maxwell because he said to me he hasn't been to Tobago in quite quite some time. Well, this is my third trip to Tobago in the last couple of months. In March, you were here to inaugurate our offices here at TTBS with support of the THE. And then in May 8th, I believe, we were here to sign off on an MOU with TTAL. And now we're here today to discuss a stakeholder, to have a stakeholder consultation with you. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed stakeholders, specially invited guests, good morning to you. I'm very excited again to be here in Tobago to discuss this important stakeholder consultation on the compulsory standard on compact fluorescent lamps and light emitting diode lamps, LEDs. First off, a kind thank you to everyone here today, from the importers to distributors, both wholesale and retail, who have made it here and have made the time to be with us today. So today we're getting into the details of the compulsory standard and the enforcement system that the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards will implement to ensure compliance. So allow me to give you a quick overview of the National Compulsory Standard TTCS 11/2021, energy labeling for CFLs and LEDs. This standard covers the relevant test methods, general labeling requirements, energy labeling requirements, and safety and performance standards for these products. It outlines the compulsory standards, requirements and compulsory requirements and mechanisms, as well as the steps to take if a product doesn't meet the standard. Enforcing TTCS 11/2021 is a key part of TTBS's strategic plan, specifically under our national standardization strategy. As the national standards body, our role, as defined by the Standards Act number 18 of 1997, is to protect public and industrial health, welfare, and safety. With the growing focus on energy efficiency and renewable energy, and with consumers increasingly demanding reliable and eco-friendly products, the need for compliance to standards has never been more clear. Through nationwide surveys, our inspectors have noted a significant decrease in the availability of incandescent bulbs, as most consumers now prefer energy-efficient options. CFL and LED lamps are far more energy efficient than incandescent lamps, using about 75 to 80% less energy to produce the same amount of light. This translates to lower energy bills and longer lifespans, meaning fewer replacements and reduced maintenance costs. Consumers expect products that live up to their promises. Therefore, it is crucial that the products on our shelves meet the minimum requirements of TTCS 11/21. This standard provides consumers with consistent and transparent information, making it easier to make informed and energy-efficient choices. The recent closure of a regional project titled Quality for Sustainable Energy in the Caribbean, QSEC, highlighted the need for better labeling practices and product performance in our CFL and LED markets. During her keynote address, Senator the Honorable Paula Gopi-Skoon, Minister of Trade and Industry, pointed out deficiencies in labeling practices based on TTBS's tests of local CFLs and LED samples. TTBS is addressing these challenges by working closely with you to create a more resilient and sustainable energy environment locally. We will enforce the national standard, TTCS 11/21 for CFLs and LEDs with our energy efficient testing lab as models of bulbs on the market for compliance. This has helped reduce the presence of substandard and non-conforming products. As usual and as is normal, imported shipments of CFLs and LEDs will be subject to inspection, sampling, and testing to ensure they meet the standards requirements. Goods that pass will be released for sale or distribution. By enforcing this standard and implementing rigorous testing, we aim to eliminate substandard products, ensuring a safer and more sustainable future for all. In conclusion, TTBS is dedicated to promoting and enforcing standards that ensure the safety and quality of products in our nation. I encourage all stakeholders to actively participate in this consultation, provide valuable feedback, and collaborate with us to achieving our joint efforts and joint goals. Thank you for your dedication and partnership as we embark on this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trejo, for the welcoming remarks. My apologies, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ria Francis, and I was joined by Ms. Danielle Holder today. All right, up next on the agenda is Mrs. Melissa James Guy, Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary. Welcome, Ms. James Guy.
Thank you, Ms. Francis. Councillor Sertica Williams-Orr, Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy. Mr. Jose Trejo, Executive Director, Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Senior officers of the Tobago House of Assembly. Distinguished staff of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you all a pleasant morning. It is a distinct honor and privilege to extend a heartfelt welcome to you today on behalf of the Office of the Chief Secretary at this pivotal consultation on the TTCS 11-2021 energy labeling for compact fluorescent lamps, CFLs, and light-emitting diode lamps, compulsory requirements. This event, organized by the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, is a significant milestone in our ongoing commitment to energy efficiency, environmental sustainability, and industrial progress. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of your participation in this crucial dialogue. The collaborative efforts and shared insights from this consultation will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of energy consumption in Trinidad and Tobago. By setting high standards for energy efficient products, we are not only ensuring the well-being of our citizens, but also protecting our environment and paving the way for sustainable development. The Standards Act number 18 of 1997 mandates the TTBS to establish standards that enhance the quality of goods produced or used in Trinidad and Tobago. This mandate is not merely about regulations. It is about ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of all our citizens, promoting industrial efficiency, and protecting our precious environment. Today's consultation embodies these objectives as we come together to discuss and shape the standards that will govern the labeling of CFL and LED lamps in our market. For the island of Tobago, this consultation holds particular importance. As an island community, Tobago is uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Rising sea levels, changing weather patterns, and environmental degradation pose significant threats to our way of life. By embracing energy-efficient technologies, we can mitigate some of these impacts and set a precedent for sustainable living. Furthermore, the adoption of such technologies can spur economic opportunities, create jobs, and enhance the quality of life for Tobagonians. The measures taken by the TTBS to ensure market conformance to these standards are indeed commendable. Ensuring that products meet the stipulated requirements not only protects consumers, but also fosters a fair and competitive market environment. This regulatory framework is essential for building consumer trust and encouraging the adoption of energy-efficient products. It also positions Trinidad and Tobago as a leader in the Caribbean in terms of sustainable practices and environmental sustainability and responsibility. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards for this unwavering dedication to this cause. Your efforts in organizing this consultation and in developing and enforcing these standards are invaluable. To all stakeholders and participants, your engagement and contributions are crucial. It is through collaboration and collective action that we can achieve our goals. In conclusion, today's consultation is a testament to our shared vision for a sustainable and prosperous Trinidad and Tobago. Let us use this opportunity to deepen our understanding, forge stronger partnerships, and commit to implementing the standards that will drive us towards a brighter, greener future. Together, we can make a difference for our environment, our economy, and the well-being of every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you, and I wish you all a productive and enlightening consultation.
Thank you, Mrs. Guy, for your welcoming remarks. Our next speaker is the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade, and Economy, Councillor Sertica Williams-O. Please welcome Councillor Williams-O.
Thank you, Ms. Francis. Good morning, and allow me to acknowledge Mr. Jose Trejo, Executive Director, TTBS, Mrs. Melissa James Guy, Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary. I acknowledge all of the members of staff of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, distinguished guests, honored stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And for those who came from across the pond, good morning, a hearty Tobago, good morning. Welcome to our island. It is with honor and responsibility that I stand before you today, delivering these remarks on behalf of our esteemed Chief Secretary, the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustine. Today we convene to deliberate on the TTCS 11/2021, which outlines the compulsory requirements for the energy labeling of CFLs and LEDs. This consultation is not just a formality. It is a significant step towards shaping a sustainable future for our beloved Trinidad and Tobago. Allow me to start with a question. How many of us remember a time when our homes were lit by the incandescent bulbs, those yellow bulbs? And how many of us recall the shift to the compact fluorescent lamps, or CFLs, and now the surge in popularity of the LEDs? These transitions are more than technological advancements. They are strides towards greater energy efficiency and environmental stewardship. As Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Today, we gather to educate ourselves, to learn from each other to collaborate on standards that will not only illuminate our homes, but also brighten our future. Our island of Tobago, with its unique charm and vibrant economy, stands to benefit immensely from this initiative. Energy efficiency is not just an abstract concept. It translates directly into economic savings and environmental preservation. By ensuring that the lamps imported into our nation adhere to strict energy labeling requirements, we are making a conscious effort to reduce our energy consumption, lower our electrical bills, and contribute to the global fight against climate change. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever stopped to consider how much energy a single light bulb consumes over its lifetime? The difference between an inefficient bulb and energy efficient one may seem trivial, but when multiplied across thousands of households and businesses, the impact is monumental. This is where the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards comes into play. Mandated by the Standards Act number 18 of 1997, the TTBS is our guardian of quality, ensuring that the goods produced and used in our country meet the highest industry standards. Their efforts are pivotal in promoting industrial efficiency, public welfare, health, safety, and environmental protection. Let us also recognize the economic implications. By adopting and enforcing these standards, we are fostering an environment where innovation thrives. Local businesses can rise to meet these standards, creating jobs and driving economic growth. Additionally, the reduction in energy consumption translates into significant savings for both consumers and the nation. This is not just about better light bulbs. It is about a brighter economic future for Tobago. As we move forward into our discussions today, I encourage each one of you to actively participate, share your insights, and ask questions. Your voices are vital in shaping the standards that will govern our market. Together, we can ensure that there is market conformance to these requirements, benefiting every corner of our beautiful islands. In closing, let us remember that our efforts today will have a lasting impact on future generations. By embracing energy-efficient products and appliances, we are not only improving our present, but also safeguarding our future. Let us work hand in hand to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago remains a beacon of sustainability, innovation, and progress. Thank you, and may our discussions today be as enlightening as the energy-efficient lamps for which we advocate. I thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for reminding us of how far we've come with regard to lighting and how far we still have to go for energy efficiency in TNT. Up next, we have Ms. Kimberly Badlu, Standards Officer 1 in Standardization Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Ms. Badlu has functioned as the Standards Officer in the Standardization Division of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards for 11 years. Her focus is primarily on the development of national standards for electrical codes and products, including lighting, products, and energy efficiency. She graduated from the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of the West Indies in 2011 with honors. She worked as an electrical engineering consultant at Lee, Young and Partners. At the TTBS, she is the technical secretary to many committees, including the National Technical Committee for Electrical Codes, the committee responsible for the revision of the low voltage electrical wiring code. Please help me welcome Ms. Badlu.
My name is Kimberly Badlu, and I'm a standards officer in the standardization division of TTBS. So firstly, let me apologize for not being there at the Tobago consultation with you all. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but I hope that you all can receive my presentation via this video. So my presentation is entitled The Overview of TTCS 11 2021. Energy labeling compact fluorescent lamps and light emitting diode lamps. It's a mouthful, so I'll further refer to it as TTCS 11. So firstly, let's start with the mandate of TTBS. The Bureau shall promote and encourage the development and maintenance of standards, and further shall establish standards for the improvement of good produced or used in Trinidad and Tobago to ensure industrial efficiency, to promote public and industrial welfare, health and safety, and for the protection of the environment. The exceptions are that the TTBS does not develop standards for food, drugs, and cosmetics, as this is under the responsibility of the Chemistry, Food, Drugs Division of the Ministry of Health. So what is a standard? A standard is a document containing technical specs or other precise criteria to be used constantly as rules or guidelines to ensure that materials, products, and processes are fit for their intended purposes. And there are two types of standards: voluntary standards and compulsory standards. The voluntary standards are for use by industry players, for example, incident reports and business continuity. It's also used for third-party certification. So that an example of this would be the TTS ISO 45001, which is our occupational health and safety management system requirements. And lastly, it can be incorporated into the regulatory scheme of other agencies and thereby making it compulsory. So an example of this are all parts of the wiring code. So all parts of those are enforced by the Government Electrical Inspectorate, and therefore you have to comply with all of those standards in order to pass the inspections. And that makes it compulsory in their regulations. So a compulsory standard is a document declared by the TTBS as a national standard, and they have also been accorded compulsory status by the Minister of Trade. The criteria for recommending compulsory status includes protect the consumer or user against danger to health or safety, to protect public or industrial health, welfare, or safety, to protect the environment, and to ensure acceptable quality in products, whether produced for home use or for export. Now let's go into the development of a standard. There are many steps, and firstly, a need has to be identified. Once that need is identified, TTBS then collects the technical and trade data and prepares a first draft of the standard. The relevant spec committee is established and they develop the draft of the standard. They refine it over a few committee meetings. That draft is then advertised for public comment for 60 days at minimum. If any comments are received during that period, they are discussed and included in the final draft if necessary. The final draft is then submitted to the board of TTBS. If it's a voluntary status and the board approves the standard, it is declared and the voluntary standard is published. If that standard is compulsory, it has an extra step to go through. It has to get the ministry to process a compulsory status, and then it's published. The next step would be the implementation of the standard in Trinidad and Tobago, and then periodic revision as necessary. So we are currently at the implementation of this TTCS 11. So the overview of this standard. What is TTCS 11? Well, first of all, it's a national adoption of a regional standard. And the regional standard so that means this standard is intended to be used together with the CARICOM standard, which is the regional standard, CRS 58/2018 of a similar name, energy labeling, compact fluorescent lamps, and light emitting diode lamps requirements. This standard was issued by CrossQ in November of 2018. So who is responsible for this development? The committee responsible is the Advisory Committee for Energy Labeling. This comprises the conformity assessment divisions at the TTBS, which are the Implementation Division, Certification Division, Laboratory Services Division, and Standardization Division, serving as the Technical Secretary. The contents of this standard include the scope, the normative references, terms and definitions, requirements, mechanisms to demonstrate compliance, and measures related to non-compliance. So the scope of this standard states that it specifies the relevant test methods, general labeling requirements, energy labeling requirements, and safety and performance requirements for the following: self-ballasted compact fluorescent lamps, or CFLs, with a voltage of greater than 50 volts, and integrated light emitting diode lamps, or LEDs, for stable operations intended for domestic and similar general lighting purposes, having a rated power of less than 60 watts and a rated voltage between 50 and 250 volts. Now, there are several normative references for this standard, the first being the CRS standard I previously mentioned, and several IEC standards. For the purposes of this standard, the terms and definitions outlined in CRS 58 will apply. So now we are at the crux of this standard, the requirements. The energy labeling requirements for CFLs and LEDs shall comply with the following test methods and limits specified in CRS 58, that regional standard. So the efficacy, safety, CRI, power factor, harmonic distortion, lumen maintenance, startup time, run-up time, switching cycles, premature failure rate, and the rated life shall all be in accordance with CRS 58. Now, the energy labeling requirements for CFLs and LEDs are the rated voltage shall be expressed in watts, the efficacy expressed in lumens per watts, the light output in lumens, and the rated life shall be expressed in hours. The additional labeling requirements for CFLs and LEDs are the mark of manufacturer, country of origin, rated voltage, light color, color temperature in Kelvin, the CRI, the color rendering index, the cap type, the frequency expressed in hertz, and an indication of dimmability where applicable, and an indication of whether the CFL or LED is rated for use in an enclosure. So now we add the mechanisms to demonstrate compliance. CFLs and LEDs shall be subject to a conformity assessment program administered by TTBS through inspection, testing, certification, or a combination of all activities. A note saying TTBS will be developing an energy labeling scheme, which would include inspection, testing, and market surveillance related to these products. So you'll hear a lot about this in the future presentations. TTBS may consider and accept information from other sources, such as third-party testing, product certification, and/or a quality management system certification from an accredited body. And these are the measures related to non-compliance. So where any of these locally or imported CFLs and LEDs are found to be in breach of any of the requirements outlined in Clause 4, TTBS shall initiate any of the following actions. They can direct the manufacturer, importer, or distributor to remove non-conforming CFLs and LEDs from use throughout Trinidad and Tobago. They can seize and detain non-conforming CFLs and LEDs, prohibit the sale and distribution, permit modifications as it pertains to labeling that's necessary for compliance, and they can also direct the manufacturer, importer, or distributor to initiate a product recall. And any breaches to the standards are subject to fines and penalties as outlined in the Standards Act. How do you obtain this standard? So this compulsory national standard can be downloaded at gottbs.com/shop. and it is completely free. You can download it and you can go through it on your device and you can look at it completely free of charge. So before I close, let me just inform you of some upcoming standards that we have. TTCS 24/2023, Electrical Appliances Compulsory Requirements, was recently published and preparations for enforcement activities are underway. And we also have some other energy labeling standards that are upcoming. The refrigerating appliances as well as air conditioners are currently in the committee stage, and the expected enforcement is in 2025. So look out for any of these enforcement activities. So thank you very much for your attention. This is the end of my presentation. I hope it was informative and valuable. I'll now turn you back over to our moderator. Thank you again for your attention. Good day. Good day, everyone. My name is Kimberly Badlu, and I'm
Thank you, Ms. Badlu, for your presentation. Please note that today's program is recorded and will be uploaded on TTBS YouTube channel. Our next speaker is Mr. Dunat Singh. He is a standards officer at the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. He brings a wealth of expertise and experience in the fields of electrical engineering, laboratory management, and quality assurance. He currently holds a Bachelor of Applied Science in Utilities Engineering with honors. Specializing in electrical engineering, he also holds a diploma in electrical and electronic engineering technology and a certificate in project management with distinction. In his role at TTBS, Mr. Singh has been instrumental in managing operational activities within the electrical products and energy efficiency lighting laboratories. He has also conducted extensive research and development in new testing areas within the laboratories, ensuring that TTBS remains at the forefront of innovation and technological advancement in electrical testing and quality assurance. Please welcome Mr. Singh.
The Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade, and the Economy, Councillor Sertica Williams-Orr. The Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guide. The Executive Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, Mr. Jose Trejo. The Manager, Energy Efficiency, THA, Ms. Melina Trim. Manager of the Implementation Division of TTBS, Mr. Jared Maxwell. Specially invited guests, fellow staff of TTBS. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and to our online participants. My name is Dudnat Singh. I am the officer in charge of the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory. So this morning, I would give you a brief background of the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory at TTBS. The Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory came into existence as part of the CARICOM project R3E, strengthening for the regional quality infrastructure in the Caribbean in the areas of energy efficiency and renewable energy as a center of excellence for lighting products. The Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards in March of 2020 acquired a 2-meter integrated sphere system as part of its developmental process for testing in the area of energy efficiency, performance of CFLs and LED lighting products. So I'd give you just a brief timeline of the events that took place in the development of the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory. So in August of 2018, a 1-week training at Labello in Brazil, 2 staff members of the Electrical Products Laboratory attended a training for performance testing of CFLs and LED products. In August of 2020, the laboratory was commissioned and audited by Intertech Energy Star, and this audit was successful. During the period of January 2021 to December of 2023, in-country testing of LEDs and CFLs were conducted at the laboratory. 24 samples of LEDs were tested and 2 samples of CFL lamps were tested. In October of 2023 and December of 2023, we conducted regional testing of CFLs and LEDs. 4 samples of LEDs were tested and 1 sample of CFLs were tested. And this was a collaboration between Jamaica Bureau of Standards and Barbados. June 2022 and May 2023, the lab conducted its first ILC interlab comparison of CFLs and LEDs with VD Institute in Germany, and this interlab comparison was successful. In March to April of 2023, a 2-week training at Labelo, Brazil was conducted by 1 staff member of the Electrical Products Laboratory for safety and performance testing of CFLs and LED lighting products. In July of 2023, TTBS, Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory, was first audited by A2LA to attain its accreditation status for CFLs and LED lighting products, which was also successful. In February 2024, the lab conducted its second interlab comparison for CFLs and LEDs with VD Institute in Germany, and was also successful. In February 2024, the Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory conducted its reassessment audit by A2LA, and it was reaffirmed its accreditation status for CFLs and LED lighting products. Now moving on to the implementation of our minimum energy performance standards. The Lighting Laboratory has implemented 2 performance standards and 2 labeling standards, and these include the IEC 60969 and IEC 62612 for CFLs and LEDs, and our labeling standards TTCS 11 and CRS 58 for labeling. The aforementioned IEC standards will cover performance testing mainly for electrical and luminous characteristics of lighting products. Our testing requirements at the laboratory. So we test for both electrical parameters and photometric parameters. The tests that we conduct are for voltage, current, power, frequency, power factor, and efficacy. For our photometric parameters, we conduct testing for our color temperature, chromaticity coordinates, color rendering index, and initial luminous flux. Now on to our sample size for testing. So sampling size required by the IEC 62612 for testing of LED lamps are 20 lamps, which consists of a batch for testing. Sampling size required by IEC 60969 for testing of CFL lamps are 10 lamps, which consist of 1 batch. Note, each batch shall be of the same type, model, brand, wattage, voltage, and frequency for submission to the testing laboratory. Now, the duration of testing for these lamps are LED lamps extend to 3 working days, and CFL lamps extend to 6 working days. Test reports take 1 working day to be issued, which is exclusive of the testing time. Costing. TTBS has developed a cost structure for the testing as per batch size for both CFLs and LEDs based on the electric and photometric parameters. The following is a test cost as per lighting product. LED lamps, which consists of 20 lamps per batch, is $3,000, and this will include the labeling aspect, the labeling assessment, electrical and photometric testing. For CFL lamps, which is 10 lamps, which consists of 1 batch, is $3,500, and this will include labeling, aging, electrical and photometric testing. Now, only for CFL lamps require aging or preconditioning. This entails that the lamp be energized for 100 hours, which will consist of 4.5 days before the commencement of testing. Services. The Energy Efficiency Lighting Laboratory will continue its testing services at a national level through our conformity assessment activities. TTBS has extended its services to our CARICOM neighbors and member states counterparts and will continue to provide assistance in supporting our mandate to our clients. So thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. I now have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Melanie Trim, Manager, Energy Efficiency of the THA, who was very instrumental in the establishment of the stakeholder engagement today. So, Ms. Trim, welcome.
I often have to raise the mic when I come to the podium. The Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, Councillor Sitika Williams-Orr, the Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guy, Manager, well, that's me, Executive Officer of the TTBS, Jose E. Trejo, sorry, Manager of the Implementation Division at TTBS, Mr. Gerard Maxwell, specially invited guest, fellow staff of the TTBS, and all those who are here, good morning. All right, I also bring greetings from the Assemblyman, Mr. Sonny Craig, who now has the responsibility for energy, climate change, and the environment. So I'm just going to talk a bit about energy efficiency, renewable energy, and energy conservation within the Tobago House of Assembly and its role and function as it stands now and how it relates to this initiative that the TTBS is now rolling out for us today. Right, so Tobago, under its current energy system, stands to immediately benefit from operational cost savings when energy conservation and energy efficiency policies are implemented and consciously practiced across all sectors in Tobago, particularly within the Tobago House of Assembly. At present, the THA is actively pursuing EC and EE programs like these to not only bring awareness to energy efficiency technologies, such as light-emitting diode bulbs or LED bulbs as we know it, and the associated or existing smart technologies, but also to actualize the significant cost savings associated with the use of the technology. We therefore want to commend, embrace, and thank the initiative of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, or TTBS, for this stakeholder engagement on the national compulsory standard for labeling of compact fluorescent lamps and LED bulbs that are being imported into the country. While this will ensure there is market conformance to the compulsory requirements, it will also shield Tobagonians from energy inefficiency and inadvertently support monetary savings in our electricity bill, insulation from the already increased TNTEC prices, and reduction in the island's annual carbon footprint, thereby protecting the environment. So within the THA, the fiscal space that will be created by EE and EC programs will be directed towards social programs and infrastructural development for renewable energy technologies on the island. Energy conservation and energy efficiency efforts in Tobago will also decrease energy consumption and serve as a climate change adaptation and mitigation measure, lower our capital costs for implementing RE technologies on the island, and thereby enhance their performance potential. So it is therefore crucial to instill an energy environment management culture across all sectors in Tobago to enhance economic, social, and environmental performance as the island aims to diversify its energy sources and achieve environmental and energy sustainability. The mandatory labeling standards being promoted by the TTBS will serve to catalyze the launch of the THA's LED by Example or LED by Example program. And this initiative is designed to monitor, measure, and promote EE and EC practices across all THA divisions and private sector, focusing on 4 key components: the institutional values, policy and regulatory framework, public awareness, and financial schemes. And the program will also include phased energy audits across THA divisions, EE and EC competitions within divisions and schools, and implementation of clear and easy to read labeling and standards for energy efficient appliances and equipment, including Energy Star rated items. Additionally, we are currently engaging in an assessment of the capital expenditures to facilitate motion sensor lighting, in buildings, phase retrofitting of LED lighting, installation of inverter type air conditioners, and smart devices to increase efficiency, and deployment of solar water heaters in buildings requiring hot water. Ultimately, the implementation of EC and EE measures in Tobago, spearheaded by THA initiatives and supported by national standards like these and those set by TTBS, marks a crucial step towards sustainable development. These efforts not only promise immediate cost savings and environmental protection, but also pave the way for a resilient future. By fostering an energy management culture, Tobago will not only enhance its economic and social performance, but will also ensure environmental stewardship. Let us continue to embrace these opportunities, driving towards a diversified and sustainable energy future for Tobago, where efficiency and conservation lead the way to prosperity and environmental harmony. So I want to say as well, in addition to this, the importance of introducing LED lighting. And again, I want to commend and thank the TTBS for this initiative. We would have done a little project and the results will be posted very soon, whereby we would have done LED lighting in a building with solar water heating as well. Compared it to incandescent bulbs as well as CFL bulbs, and we saw a remarkable difference, whereby in one case where we had inefficient energy type lighting, the electricity bill would have been about $500. And when there was implementation of energy efficiency technology, such as smart lighting system, LED bulbs, and the solar water heater, which takes significant cost away, as we know, heating and cooling, considerable cost, right? We saw a bill of $100. So that was a remarkable difference of $400 just by changing to LED lighting, because it reduces your consumption. As well as the renewable energy technology implementation, it is very important that we reduce our energy consumption first and foremost, as we understand that renewable energy technology such as solar lighting, the considerable cost comes from our battery or storage. So if we are able to reduce our energy consumption, we will thereby be able to reduce the capital cost for renewable energy technology. And of course, we have cost savings to our TNTech bill. As we know, TNTech would have recently increased the rates, and we are seeing a lot of complaints as well. We understand the heat as a result of climate change. We understand how hot it is, and persons have greater demands for air conditioning. So we also would have retrofitted, instead of using the split level AC units, retrofitted with inverter type AC, which has its pros and cons, but we were still able to actualize some cost savings. So I want to thank you all for being here and encourage everyone to utilize energy efficiency measures to reduce the consumption, to reduce the carbon footprint within Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, that is environmentally sustainable practice, as well as it will reduce our coins in our pocket. We'll have more fiscal space and more money to do other things that we'll otherwise do on a personal level. And of course, the THA has embarked on a number of initiatives which would actualize that fiscal space. So thank you, TTBS, for this initiative and the stakeholder consultation, and we look forward to collaborating and partnering with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trim, for your enlightening remarks. Our next speaker is Mr. Kevin Philip Grant. He is an electrical engineer with a comprehensive background in renewable and sustainable energy systems. He obtained a Bachelor of Applied Science in Utilities Engineering from the University of Trinidad and Tobago, where he specialized in electrical engineering. He also obtained a Master of Science from the University of the West Indies in Renewable Energy Technology. Kevin is a licensed electrician, a member of the Association of Energy Engineers, the immediate past chairman of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, the Trinidad and Tobago section, having served on the executive for 6 consecutive years. Mr. Grant's expertise include the design and implementation of electrical systems and the integration of renewable energy systems to the existing electrical infrastructure. He has over 25 years of experience at the TTBS, where he worked in several departments within the organization, which includes Implementation Division, Laboratory Services Division, Metrology Division, and most recently, Certification Division. He is also a content creator and a facilitator of renewable energy technologies. He delivers his program in collaboration with an NGO to the secondary school students in Trinidad. He is a mentor to young people who are interested in pursuing careers in renewable energy and is very passionate about using his knowledge and experience to make a positive impact on the world. Please welcome Mr. Grant.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, Councillor Cynthia Williams-Orr. The Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guide. Manager, Energy Efficiency, THA, Ms. Melanie Trim. Manager of the Implementation Division, Mr. Gerard Maxwell. Executive Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau Standard, Mr. Jose Trejo, specially invited guests, and fellow staff of the TTBS. So I'm supposed to have a presentation. Let's just hold on while I put that up. So as Mrs. Trim had said, it's almost like she took a little peep into today's presentation. So I want to touch on a number of things. So we want to briefly compare CFLs versus LEDs. I also have some graphics in terms of energy consumption. All right, there the slides are up. Let's go, guys. So one of the things we want to define first is what is energy efficiency. All right, I'll run with it. So the first thing we want to say in terms of energy efficiency is the use of less energy to perform the same task. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And I also want to state that energy efficiency is one of the most effective ways to reduce climate change. And Ms. Trim would have spoke about that recently. All right, so we spoke about climate change as well, and we have some images up there on the display. So what you're looking at is that you would see things like the Manzanilla Road. So that road is the second time that road collapsed due to climate change, extreme rainfall. The one with the flooding that is in central Trinidad that occurred in 2018. And the Leaning statue that is from Moruga, St. Peter's. The graph that I want to show as well with climate change, you would see per decade our temperature has been continuously rising. And the last bar on that chart is from 2021 to 2020. And you all would have felt the heat, and you all would agree with me that climate change is at our doorsteps. So we're moving on to the next slide, please. One of the things that brings it home for me is this side-by-side comparison of the greenhouse effect. So on one side, you have the natural greenhouse effect, and then you have the human-enhanced greenhouse effect. Because of our usage, our industrial activity, we produce greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, water vapor, nitrous oxide, and that sort of stuff. What happens now when we have that greenhouse effect, you would realize it traps the heat in the Earth's atmosphere that contributes to global warming. So one of the key contributors to global warming is electricity generation, right? So we generate our electricity using fossil fuel, right? Although it's natural gas, it is still a fossil fuel. In terms of energy, we need an energy source. We need to transform that energy into useful energy. And these greenhouse gases, as I mentioned earlier, is causing or increasing global warming or extreme weather conditions. Next slide, please. So this is just some little information for you here. Trinidad and Tobago has a high carbon dioxide emission. So approximately 75% of our total emission comes from power generation and the industrial sector. Next slide, please. Ms. Trim also spoke about this. So in May of this year, TNTech reported 1,456.2 megawatts of electricity. That's the peak power at any point in time. And we are saying that this generation or this high amount of electricity generation could be attributed to the global warming and most people turning on their air conditions, turning on their fans. All right. And below there, that amount of electricity generated is equivalent to 1.017 metric tons of carbon dioxide. Now, this is at an instant. This is not the entire day. This is not an entire hour. This is at a particular instant. All right. So I can't talk about climate change and energy efficiency without making mention about the Paris Agreement. So it is a legally binding international treaty to which Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory. The goals of this Paris Agreement is that we want to keep or limit temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius. All right, and we will move on to the next slide. And I will speak about Trinidad and Tobago's nationally determined contribution. And what Trinidad and Tobago has pledged is that we want to reduce our carbon emission by 15%. And we're looking at the areas of power generation, transportation, and industry. Right? This is just to show how it feeds into the whole concept of energy efficiency and lighting. So this graph here, this is data from Trinidad and Tobago. This is the Central Statistical Office. Unfortunately, it's the most recent data. Hopefully they compile in the next study. What I want you to notice is that the black bar represents 2000 and the gray bar represents 2011. So we have some common household appliances, things like your televisions, refrigerators, washing machines, microwave, and air conditioning. What I want you to take away from this is that from the period 2020 to 2011, we saw an increase in the purchase and use of these devices, right? So we're using more electricity to power these devices. All right, next slide, please. What I did here is that for residential customers, and again, as I say, it's almost like Ms. Trim peeped into my presentation. We're talking about electricity. So this is what we currently pay for electricity. So for the first 400 kilowatt hours, we pay 26 cents. From 401 to 600, we pay 32 cents and 37 cents for 100 kilowatt hour. And we pay a customer charge of $6. That's what we currently pay. So my next slide now, what I did is a side-by-side comparison. So you have there now the current rate, and now you have the proposed rate. And what you would notice is that the proposed rate, instead of 3-tier system, it now has a 4-tier system. And instead of starting at 400 kilowatt, we start at 200 kilowatts. And you see in there 28 cents, 40 cents, 54 cents, 68 cents. So if you think your electricity bill is high now, imagine what will happen if this proposed structure comes into effect. All right? This here now is from the Energy Chamber. They did a study, and what they are saying here, what I want you to take away from it, is that 43% of households use over 1,000 kilowatt hour of electricity. And that is roughly equivalent to a bill of over $2,000. And as Ms. Trim said, if you become energy efficient, we could reduce that money we spend and put it to something else. All right? And I must remind you that that is basically for the home. So we're dealing with the home use. We're not dealing with industrial customers. All right? So people may ask, so why residential customers should be so keen to conserve or save energy? And this slide explains it. 88% of TNTech customers are residential customers. So therefore, if we do our part and become energy efficient, we could reduce, right, reduce the electricity company having to provide that much energy from the grid. All right? So why we're here today, we're talking about energy efficiency appliances, but more importantly, lighting. All right, so the light bulb was invented in 1879, And I think it was Councillor Williams that spoke about the tungsten filament. So those who may be older or who are around, they would hear the more mature folks say, take off the light and make it hot. Because although we had the device to provide light, it gave you more heat than light, right? So I don't know if anybody still uses the tungsten filament, but I know they are being phased out. They are slowly fading away, all right? So this is our next slide here that I want you all to take away. It's a good takeaway. So what this slide does, it compares the incandescent bulb, the CFL bulb, and the energy or LED bulb. So look at this here. We went from 60 watts to 13 watts to 6 watts. In terms of the incandescent, if you look at the shaded region, it represents heat, and the white area represents light. So as we said before, the incandescent bulb gives you more heat than light. When we move to the CFL bulb, you still get heat, but you get a little more light. Now, the LED bulbs have a device in it called a heat sink, which will absorb whatever heat it is there, but it gives you more light than heat, all right? At the bottom now, what I want you to notice, if you can make it out, is that I'm comparing incandescent halogen LEDs. But what you would see in terms of the incandescent bulb, you used to get an average life of 750 hours to 2,000 hours. But when we look at the LEDs, you're looking at 35,000 to 50,000 hours. So basically, it takes a longer time before this device goes to the landfill. Yeah? So this, I want you all to take that away. This is directly from the TNTech's website. If you go up on TNTech, you could use it for other things other than to pay your bill. They also have some nice information there. So they just basically saying that the LEDs use 85% less energy when you compare it to an incandescent bulb, and 30% less energy when you compare it to a CFL. So therefore, what I want to say is that if we work with incandescent, we may want to move to LEDs, right? You're working with CFLs, it's cool, but eventually we want to get to LEDs, right? You reduce your energy consumption. Next slide, please. So what I was able to do here is that I wanted to give you all a direct comparison. So I compared a 32-watt bulb being run, let's say, for example, you run it for the whole year, and it's equivalent to 32 watt is a 7-watt bulb. And if you notice what I highlighted at the bottom, the CFL, if we run it for the year, it will cost you $61.11. If we run the said LED equivalent for a year, it will cost you $13.36. So that's a savings of almost $47.75 for one bulb. So imagine if you outfit your whole house with LEDs. And we're just talking bulbs. We're talking about appliances like air conditioners, dryers, refrigerators, that sort of stuff. So just think of the savings that could be derived from that. Next slide, please. So as Ms. Trim would have stated, most devices with heating and cooling, these are the devices we need to look at in terms of when we want to talk about energy reduction. So you have things like microwave, air condition, dryers, pumps. These are devices you look for in your home as the first sign of reducing your energy or becoming energy efficient. Okay? Next slide. So Ms. Trim spoke about the inverter AC units, right? I don't want to dwell too much on it. As she said, there are pros and cons to that. One of the cons with the inverter units, people find there's a lengthy payback period, all right? But it definitely does save energy. So on an inverter air condition, basically it has microprocessors in it, and it controls the speed of the motor, right? I don't know if you ever listen to those older air conditioners. You may hear it turning on and off, click, 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 click. That is the energy being used when it turns off and on. In terms of the inverter, it has a variable drive, so you can vary the speed, right? And that is where you derive the savings, all right? Next slide. So what I did here is that I wanted to compare the inverter versus the non-inverter. And as I said before, you have your variable speed versus your fixed speed. One of the things I think everybody interested in here, you have huge savings on your electricity bill. Definitely with using the inverter. One of the things as well too, you have lower noise being produced from an inverter AC versus a traditional AC. Next slide. What I wanted to show here, again, same variable speed versus fixed speed. This is in a tropical climate. So the blue checkered represents the variable speed or the inverter type, and the red represents the traditional. Now, what you would notice, they're both trending in the same direction, but however, the variable speed uses less energy. All right? Next slide. So there are things that we call energy hogs, and These are the devices you need to pay attention to that consume loads of energy in your household. So you see like your water heater, air conditioner, washing machine, iron, vacuum cleaner, right? So this list could probably do a little refreshing because everybody now, they have what they call this air fryer. So air fryer probably consumes about 1200 watts. So all these devices you look at in terms of how much energy they use and find ways to conserve that energy or reduce its use. Next slide. So basically, in terms of conserving energy or becoming energy efficient, you need to know how much energy you use. So you need to find out the wattage of the device, how long you use it, and the number of the days. Sometimes you may not be able to control the wattage of the device, that's the device you have, but you could control the number of hours you use it or the number of days you use it for. Next slide, guys. Again, this is from the Regulated Industries Commission. These are a list of common household appliances that you would find in the average home, how much watts it use, and what your bi-monthly bill would be. So for example, let's say the refrigerator, it has an average wattage of 620. And they're saying that if using that bi-monthly would cost you $77.38. Again, this came from the RIC, a nice place as well for resources in terms of stuff like this. Next slide, guys. So I talk about conserving energy, I talk about like wattage and that kind of stuff. You would find the information on your appliance on a device called a nameplate. So the picture here is not for you to read per se, but just give you a visual of what a nameplate looks like. Next slide, guys. So the nameplate will have general information, manufacturer, model number, serial number, and that sort of stuff. That is important, but what I really want you all to pay attention to is the next half, where we talk about voltage, current, frequency, and power, because it's power we're really looking at to find out the energy usage. Next slide. This slide just basically shows you with a fridge and a washing machine, some of the places that you may look to find the nameplate. So it could be on the inside door, it could be under the appliance, it could be behind the appliance. All right. And the energy label, which we'll speak about a little later in our next presentation. So the energy efficiency label, that's what we're talking about, is the label that indicates the energy efficiency of the appliance in question. I'm hopeful that some of you all would have seen this label and you've seen that information there, whether it's A, B, C, D, E, or F. So that will tell you the energy efficiency. It may actually tell you how much money you're saving or how much energy you're saving per year. And again, future presenters will go into this and break it down for you guys. All right, next slide. So, nearing the end, guys, so I just wanted to leave some tips. I guess some of you all know them. Some of them you may not know. So you turn off the lights when you're not in use, right? Turn off the air condition when the room is not occupied. You try to dry clothes outdoor instead of a dryer, right? Heat only the amount of water you need in a kettle. So you know you're gonna make 1 cup of tea, 1 cup of coffee, you don't fill the whole kettle, heat it, and you know you're wasting energy. So if the devices have an energy saving mode, you place it in that. You service your air condition when it's due, and you consider using those blinds instead of to allow natural light to come into place instead of using artificial light. Next slide. Unplug the phone chargers when not in use. Right, consider switching to LED lighting. I think you all would have heard that today, definitely. Allow food to cool before placing in the fridge. Turn off the tap when brushing teeth, right? Clean the lint from the clothes dryer. Consider the tankless water heater versus the traditional water heater, all right? And when an appliance, whether it be a TV and AC, it comes down and you need to replace it, you should consider an energy efficient option. Wash full load of clothes in the machine and iron all your clothes for the work week instead of 1 suit in the morning. All right, that is the end of my presentation, guys. If we have any questions, I'm here afterwards so we could talk. So thanks for your time, thanks for your attention, guys. Thank you.
So who's going home to change all the bulbs in the house now? Me? All right, so up next, we have Mr. Clint Barnes, Inspector 1 of the Surveillance and Special Projects Units of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Mr. Clint Barnes is currently employed as an inspector of the implementation division at TTBS. Mr. Barnes has worked at the TTBS for the past 17 years, during which time he has functioned in various units in the division, including the automotive, construction goods, electrical, and special projects unit. Mr. Barnes graduated from the University of the West Indies with a Bachelor's of Science with honors in biology. He's an American Society of Quality Certified Quality Inspectors. He is also a certified lead auditor for both the ISO 45001-2018 and ISO 9001-2015. Mr. Barnes has also sat on a number of standard development committees. He is currently a part of the team responsible for implementing the compulsory national standard for CFL and LED bulbs, as well as refrigeration and air conditioning products. Please help me welcome Mr. Clint Barnes.
Okay, good morning all. Right, the Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, Councillor Sutika Williams-O. The Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guy. The Executive Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, Mr. Jose Trejo. Manager, Energy Efficiency, THA, Ms. Melanie Trim. Manager, Implementation Division, Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, Mr. Jared Maxwell. Specially invited guests and all our colleagues from the TTBS. What I will be going through now is an actual survey that was done, inclusive of testing of the CFLs and LEDs that actually came into the country and being used in Trinidad and Tobago, right? So we'll be looking at the National CFL and LED Survey. We'll be looking at the results of the labeling inspection, the results of laboratory testing, and we'll draw some conclusions from our findings there. Right. So the survey was conducted from January 2020 to January 2021. It was also updated in 2024. The survey was to ascertain the level of conformity to TTCS 11, right? This was all part of a project coordinated by CrossQ and funded by PTB, right? The area of coverage, we actually covered the entire country, inclusive of all jurisdictions, Tobago included, right? So we'll look at some of the survey results. Over 220 retailers were visited. 84 brands were seen on the market. The top 24 of these brands actually made up 80% of all the bulbs found. 53 of the brands were found in 3 or less locations, though it must be noted that while it might have been found in 3 or less locations, it doesn't speak to the actual quantity of bulbs imported. It speaks to just the distribution of the bulbs, because some of the actual importers would have house brands. So the house brands, they would import large quantities, but it wouldn't be distributed. They wouldn't be distributors of these brands. It might be distributed all over. So if you look at the big the big retailers like Bago & Singh and the others, you would see they may have some shop brands, and those shop brands, they would import in large quantities, but they wouldn't do distribution of those shop brands, right? So samples were taken from 24 of the brands, which made up the 80% of the market. And from these samples, we actually started to look at the various requirements. So we'd start with the labeling requirements, right? So with respect to labeling requirements, this is where the crux of energy efficiency comes in. We looked at the rated wattage, the actual lumens, and by extension, the efficacy of the actual bulbs. So when you're looking at a bulb, you're looking at how bright it is and how much power it actually consumes. So this is where the efficacy rating would be essential when making a determination on the type of bulb. If you're looking at the 100 watt equivalent, the 60-watt equivalent, 75-watt equivalent, and how much energy, how much power it requires to actually put out the lumen output, right? We also looked at rated life. The rated life, which my colleague spoke about before, speaks to how long the bulb actually lasts. And from rated wattage, we had no problem with labeling. Everybody had a rated wattage there, but the efficacy was only 42% of the bulbs actually were labeled with efficacy rating. The light output in lumens, 96%, which was all but one, actually had the lumen rating. But with rated hours, you would see that 100% actually had the rated hours. And we see rated hours from 10,000 to 50,000. The thing with rated hours, though, is that currently we are building capacity to try to test this rated hour claim, because it's easy to say that your bulb will give you 50,000 hours, but to test it would be very difficult, because to run a bulb for 50,000 hours, based on all the bulbs on the market, I mean, it will tie up the lab for years to come if we would try and do that. So how we may proceed is based on complaints. If people say that a bulb doesn't last as long as it should or as it is rated to last, then we will actually do the testing on those specific bulbs, right? So we'd look at some additional requirements, right? The mark of manufacturer. This is important for traceability. We also try to encourage importers to put their information, their contact information, including location, contact numbers, so that when customers have complaints, at least they will be able to know where they could go for some type of recourse. Country of origin. The majority of bulbs coming into the country are from China. Even the shop brands, what happens is that the importer or the retailer would contact a manufacturer in China, ask them to make bulbs to their specifications, and they would actually brand the bulbs and distribute in Trinidad and Tobago. So probably we saw 1 or 2 bulbs from Mexico and the USA, but the vast majority of bulbs coming into the country is actually from China, right? Rated voltage. In Trinidad, we operate probably between 110 to 120 for the lighting circuits. So once we have bulbs coming in, we have to ensure that they operate within this range that is accepted down here locally, right? With respect to light color and the Kelvin rating, well, they are similar and interrelated, where you would look at lower Kelvin would give you more yellow light, whereas the higher K values would give you white and blue lights. There we saw for mark of manufacturer, 100% conformance. This is just labeling. Country of origin, all but one actually had the country of origin. The rated voltage, all but one had the rated voltage stated on the package, and 71% for light color, right? Which would tell you if it's warm white or daylight or whatever, whichever color that they actually advertise, and the Kelvin rating, 100% conform to the Kelvin rating requirements. We'd look at some additional labeling requirements. So CRI, the color rendering index, tells you what color you actually see. So when it comes to paint or the actual color paint on the wall, the true color that you see would be determined by the type of light that is in the room. So if you look at a warm white versus a daylight, it would actually give you you would see a different shade. The shade is always the same, but the reflection, what you actually see, would be different. So with color rendering index, we look at what color we actually see compared to either daylight or incandescent bulbs. The cap type speaks to the type of cap that would be on the bulb to fit into the receptacle that you're screwed in. The frequency, we operate at 60 Hertz locally. But we have seen some bulbs on the market with 50 hertz, and we would have to do some testing to see the effects of 50 hertz, though we discourage completely the use of 50 hertz locally and only encourage use of 60 hertz rated bulbs. Indication of dimmability and use for enclosures. From one retailer, we actually saw where a very prominent brand, which was not rated for enclosures, was actually using an enclosure. And they got a number of complaints and a number of people brought back bulbs that did not actually reach the end of life. They did not reach the end of life. This was because they weren't rated for enclosures. And when it's in an enclosure, the heat that might build up in there actually shortens the life of the bulb. So this is why we made sure and have this requirement here so that customers would know, consumers would know to use the bulb for how they are actually designed to be used, right? Some are not dimmable and should not be used in circuits where you're using dimmers, and some also are not used for enclosure, not rated for enclosures, right? So that's it. We'll move on to test results now. Right, so with respect to the test results, 88% of the actual bulbs tested met the requirement for voltage stabilization. This is where the bulbs, when they are on, they actually have to maintain whatever rated voltage they state between plus or minus 0.2%. So 88% met this requirement. With respect to power consumption, which is initiation power, it must not exceed 10%, right? Must not exceed the rated power by more than 10%. So where some people would make claims that they use 10 watts and accomplish the equivalent of a 100-watt bulb, 83% of the bulbs tested actually met the throughput that was stated on the actual packaging. Efficacy, well, with efficacy, luminous flux, and the CRI, we would see that some of the figures here are low. This is not necessarily because they did not meet the requirements during testing. It was because they did not actually have this information either on the packages, or they did not supply the information to us while we were conducting the testing. So this is really not a true depiction of testing, but because of lack of information in some cases, we were unable to test for these parameters. Right, we'll move on. So in conclusion, we'd look at, right, so the missing information, as I spoke before, missing information either on the packaging or supply to the TTBS affected the level of testing that we could have conducted. The bulbs on the market, we saw 50 hertz rated bulbs. Of those, we have to make a determination and we would decide how we treat with these bulbs that we saw on the market, though they were a minority, right? There were also limitations to conduct certain tests based on parameters such as the run-up tests. The run-up time, right? During the survey, in conclusion, yeah. Right. During the survey, it was also noted that some brands on the market were labeled with false certification markings, such as UL. This is actually misleading advertising, but also a breach of the Standards Act. So we will be treating with those falsely advertised brands where they actually state UL or CSA or some other type of third-party certification mark. And the marks were shown to not be actually true. They were false marks, right? And only one of the 24 brands sampled actually conformed to both the labeling and testing requirements. But we will also see that after the Trinidad leg of this stakeholder consultation, a number of importers actually came in, and we are in the process now of ensuring that all importers comply, and the speakers that would follow would speak to how we are enforcing these things and how we move ahead to ensure that all bulbs imported into the country actually comply to the national compulsory standard. Right? That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes, for your presentation. Our next speaker is Mr. Clenwood Jones. He is an Inspector 2 in the Implementation Division. He currently leads the Surveillance and Special Projects Unit that administers the market surveillance function at TTBS. The unit is also involved in spearheading the development of conformity assessment schemes for energy efficiency labeling on cooling and lighting products, pepper spray, and the development of a product registry for all items governed by national compulsory standards. Mr. Jones has been an employee of the TTBS for more than 20 years. During this time, he has functioned professionally in the areas of conformity assessment as per the enforcement of national compulsory standards, legal metrology, and health and safety and environmental management. Mr. Jones is the holder of the NIBOSH National Diploma in Occupational Safety and Health, as well as a Master's in Distinction in Environment, Health, and Safety from the University of Sunderland. He is also a trained ISO 9001-2015, ISO 14001-2015, and ISO 45001-2018 lead auditor. Please welcome Mr. Jones.
The Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, Councillor Sitika Williams-Orr, the Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guy, Mr. Jose Trejo, Executive Director, Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, Sir Gerard Maxwell, Manager, Implementation Division, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the Tobago House of Assembly, members of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, good morning, and welcome to this Tobago version of our stakeholder consultation. I want to say it's a pleasure for me to address you this morning. With respect to this consultation, we had an idea last year that we should do something like this in Tobago, because after all, this is the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. And I want to say that we have been in Tobago over the past 2 years or so doing a lot of work on the ground, understanding, as Mr. Barnes would have explained, what is available for sale on the market in Tobago, from Scarborough to Charlottesville and everywhere we went. Some people were surprised. People have been using energy efficiency lighting products. So you'll get energy efficiency lighting products in any part of Tobago that you go. And this is indeed something that we were happy to see. And we are sure that after our efforts today and our continuing efforts with the THA, that we'll see the use of energy efficiency lighting products expanded. I sat yesterday in the hotel at which we were staying, and it dawned on me, because for every room in the hotel, there's a air conditioned unit that is running probably all day, all night in some cases. They have lights. In most of the rooms, they'll have microwave ovens. Everybody has a heater or iron in the room. So in terms of the relevance of this consultation in the Tobago space, and for me, I was fortunate about 2 weeks ago to attend the World Environmental Day celebration that was held in a room right in this building. And the Honorable Chief Secretary, Mr. Augustine, made an address. And for me, it was very refreshing to hear how comfortable he was and how in tune he was with the whole concept of energy efficiency and care for the environment. One of the things that Mr. Grant said today is that one of the ways that you could conserve energy in the household is to use natural air to dry your clothes as opposed to a dryer. And Mr. Augustine made the point that he's the first chief secretary to have installed clotheslines in the official residence of the chief secretary to dry clothes. Am I correct? Yes, and that is the case. So it shows you how practical. So we coming into a space, we're not coming into a space to introduce anything that is brand new to Tobago. It is already here. And I'm saying what he said as somebody with some Tobago roots, right? That if we look back into how we did things in the past, energy efficiency, well, a lot of people didn't have current in their house. So clothes dryers, bleach, what else? Tell me, somebody, what was that, sir? What? Blue soap and so on, we didn't have no washing machine and so on. So, I mean, as we got wealthier, we started to consume more energy. So we're not introducing something into the space that is totally alien. I have something that's very boring to speak about. And what I would speak about, if we could get the slideshow going, is exactly how we intend to enforce all these things we're talking about with respect to energy efficiency products in the Tobago space. Now, I won't dwell too much on the powers of the inspectors and terms and conditions of inspectors, and I'll talk about the inspection process a little bit in a little detail. In terms of how and why we do what we do, we have a piece of legislation, the Standards Act, that empowers us to enter any premises that is being used for trade, where these products are being sold, to do an inspection of the product. The inspection fundamentally is to make a determination as to whether or not the products that are being sold meet the requirements of the established standard that we have. Now, obviously, we do everything in reasonable hours. We don't appear on the doorstep of anybody who is in the business of selling products in the middle of the night with a hard knock on your door, with any fancy words to tell you freeze, don't move, Bureau of standards. No, we do that within the course of normal working hours. And generally for us, from a surveillance and market surveillance perspective, our mantra is willing compliance. What we have found is that the majority of merchants will willingly comply with us in terms of our enforcement activities. There are one or two, I want to say something, but in the Tobago space, the people who've given us a little pushback is not people from Tobago, right? We found that in terms of the merchants from Tobago that we've been interfacing with, we have had a very, very, very good reception. Excellent, all over Tobago. We have one or two that pushing back, but they're not from this island. I won't tell you which island they're from, but they're not from Tobago, right? So we have had very, very good experiences in Tobago in terms of our survey work and some of the enforcement work that we've done. Fundamentally, first, in terms of the powers of the inspectors, if you could go to that slide, our role really is to prevent the access to the market of goods likely to be a danger to the health, safety, and welfare of members of the public and goods that could harm the environment. Now, we've been speaking all morning about the benefits of energy efficiency bulbs, energy efficiency products. So what we want to encourage as a segue from our protection of health and safety and the environment is also encourage people to use goods that would bring some cost savings. Mr. Grant went through a whole long list. I want to reemphasize for all of us that are here that this morning's proceedings will be available on the TTBS's YouTube channel so that you could view some of the complex information. We'll also make every attempt to make this information available to our partners in the THA so that anybody who wants to access some of the data that we've seen in terms of the savings and so on, that will be available. And of course, we would greatly appreciate if you want to speak to us, that you could speak to us directly. Our information will be available. So we're really trying to prevent access to the market of goods likely to be a danger. As I said, where we have reason to believe that there may be goods that might be harmful to the environment or harmful to people being available for sale, we make an intervention to ensure that that doesn't happen. I'll go to the next slide, please. Impartial, confidential, and completed in a timely manner. That is how the inspections are done. Now, when we do inspections, the results of the inspections, we don't generally share with other people. So you won't tell your competitors or somebody else who's involved in the business, well, we went by, I hope there's no business called Tom's General Store. If you're here, Tom, I'm not speaking directly to you. If we go to Tom's General Store, we wouldn't go and tell Harry, well, you know, by Tom. No, it's a confidential and impartial exercise. Fundamentally, next slide, please. What we ask of people that we go to do inspections by is to provide a safe place, well lit, free of any harm to our inspectors, and we generally do the inspections. Now, of course, there are fines and penalties that are associated with breaching the requirements. This is always the case. But as I said, willing compliance is our mantra, and we have found that most people will willingly comply. There's hardly a case where we have to pursue anybody through the courts and fines. Now, there are those cases, but that's hardly the case. Planned inspections and market surveillance activities. We have a way that we go through the market surveillance scenarios in terms of how we sample and so on. I think we're able to go to about 40 establishments in Tobago, again from Scarborough to Charlottesville. And again, well, most of the products, there's just one person who directly imports into this country, onto the island. And most of the products are the products that would have come from the distributors in Trinidad. What will be important from a Tobago perspective, especially for us and for our role, is to ensure that at the gate or at the port, when products come into the country, that they meet the requirements. So when they make their way to Tobago, because you have a lot of traders that would pack up the white vans, come across on the boat, and make their way through Tobago, delivering goods. So you want to make sure that at the point when it comes into the country, at whichever port of entry it comes into, that it meets the requirements of the standard. Okay, let me just go through this process flow on the next slide, and I begin to wrap up. Right, so we have the goods are imported, they are held for inspection at the importer's premises. As I said, there's one importer in Tobago for these goods that we know of. So generally in Trinidad, we'd hold it at the importer's premises and do an inspection, right? Fundamentally, what we do now is a label assessment. Mr. Grant spoke about the labels, the energy label. I'll come to that in a little while. But we do the label assessment. If required, we'll take samples. And in this case, we can test the lighting products, the CFL and LED bulbs. Now, the thing about it is, mention was made about CrossQ, which is the Caribbean Regional Organization for Standards and Quality Project, funded by the PTB out of Germany. Now, I don't know if Mr. Singh or probably Mr. Trejo would probably tell you all what PTB stands for, pronouncing it in German, but I certainly wouldn't attempt to do that because I don't want to embarrass myself. But the PTB fundamentally is a state organization in Germany that has helped to fund a lot of our activities around enforcement for these products. So after we do the testing in the lab that has been funded by PTB to a large extent, there are certain products on which simple modifications can be made on the label. So in cases of, let's just say, a CFL or LED bulb on the package, if, for instance, the country of origin is not displayed on the package, that's a simple modification for somebody to make, to take a little stick and put made in China, right? Or made in the US, wherever it is made. What is good for us is that, as Mr. Singh said, we have our own testing laboratory in Trinidad for the CFL and the energy efficiency lighting products. And based on the test results that we get, we could verify what is displayed on the packaging. And if adjustments need to be made based on the actual test results, those adjustments can be made. Once the items conform to the requirements, they are released for sale to the public. So generally for us, once you see, generally, products available for sale on the local market, they would have had some kind of intervention from the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. Probably Mr. Maxwell will speak about the single electronic window and how we examine import documents for everything that comes into the country and make a determination as to whether or not it meets the requirements or not. So for those things, as you know, things always slip through the cracks. things that slip through the cracks, we tackle those things with market surveillance, whereas we come out onto the field and we look and see what's there. If we see any non-conforming product, again, we liaise with the merchant, let him know, well, listen, this product has some challenges, and we work to see if we could deal with it at that level. If not, we always have the option of, we always have legal options. Now, next slide, please. Our internal testing capacity, as Mr. Singh would have said, is internationally accredited. At this point, let me just mention that in Jamaica, there's another testing facility that treats with cooling products, so refrigerators, chillers, freezers, air conditioning units, inverters, and otherwise, right? And they'll be able to make a determination as to the energy efficiency of the products. The energy labeling requirements, next slide, are held or will be displayed on the product, and we'll make a determination as to whether or not those are in fact displayed. And the slide that I want to end with, is a slide, well, not to end. We spoke about this CARICOM energy label. Let me speak a little bit about the CARICOM energy label. Coming out of the testing at our labs, we'll be able to generate an energy efficiency label that we could put on the product. Once that goes on the product, what it suggests is that the product was tested locally, it meets all of the requirements. We generate an energy label, affix it to the product, and that means also that the product is available throughout if available throughout the Caribbean, would be placed on a Caribbean regional database of products. So for anybody in the Tobago space who might be interested in importing the products or importing products, lighting products directly into Tobago. Of course, people go to China. We said that most of the information, most of the products come out of China. You are interested in doing that, contact us, right? Our contact information will be available. Let us know what you plan to do, and we'll give you guidance in terms of how you could go about selecting products that meet the requirements of this standard. And if you so desire, you could start to import them directly in Tobago. As we said, there's wide uptake throughout the island, so that we'll be willing to partner or help you with that. I won't get into too much about the implementation division's mandate, but simply to say, as all the other speakers have said, our mantra is really about consumer protection and protection of the environment. At this point, at the end of my brief presentation, I want to thank you all very much and say, I've been in Tobago now for a couple of days. I had a conversation with an uncle of mine. He's 98 years old. And he was having a climate change discussion with me, not knowing it was climate change that we were talking about. Because what he was telling me is that when he was a boy, he's 98 now, so that was a while ago. He was saying that rain don't fall in Tobago like it used to long time. Say when rain fall long time, it used to wash away Buku Point. That's what he told me. But now the rain not falling, not so much. So the effects of climate change are being felt by everybody. They are real. This is our effort as a Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, partnering with, my biased opinion, the more aesthetically pleasing of the both islands, to ensure that we do our part to protect the environment, to reduce our energy usage, and at the same time, help people to save some money. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for informing us about the Surveillance and Special Project Unit activities, and for also letting us know that he has Tobago roots. Thank you. All right, so up next, we have the Manager of the Implementation Division, Mr. Jared Maxwell. Please help me to welcome Mr. Jared Maxwell.
Yes, a very good morning to each and every one of you all. Assistant Secretary in the Division of Finance, Trade, and the Economy, Councillor Sitika Williams Orr. Administrator in the Office of the Chief Secretary, Mrs. Melissa James Guy. Manager Energy Efficiency in the THA, Ms. Trim. Thank you. Executive Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, Mr. Jose Trejo. Members of the THA, the Tobago House of Assembly, are present here with us. Specially invited guests and the staff of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. I have a very quick presentation in the interest of time, where I'm just going to speak very, very briefly about the energy efficiency landscape of the TTBS. And what we've basically seen today, in large part, is that landscape. So the activities that we bring are one, the LED and CFL energy efficiency labeling and the associated standards. Also, where we made some mention of it, is the whole question of refrigerators and AC units. So we're also involved with energy labeling for those items. And also, we have a testing program that I'll speak to very quickly just now. We also alluded to the development of a product registry. So we're currently working on a project registry for the LEDs, the CFLs, refrigerators, and AC units. So what this registry will represent is a consumer can go onto the registry to see if the products that they're going to purchase meets the requirements of the national compulsory standards. Also, an area that we'll be looking at will be the whole question of energy audits. We basically spoke, Mr. Jones basically spoke about the whole idea of going into a hotel. You're looking at the lights. If they have LED lights, we're looking at the whole question of the air conditioned units, the kettles, the microwaves. I know the bottom line is very, very important for hotels. So wherever they can save money with respect to these costs, I think it can basically assist the sector. And also, they spoke about, Ms. Trim, Mr. Grant spoke about the whole question of energy efficiency within the household and how much savings that could be accrued to the customer. So the whole question of energy audits are very important. Within this landscape, we're also looking at the question of testing services, and we provide testing services, which Mr. Singh would have spoken about for CFLs and LEDs. The Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, we're partnering with the Jamaica Bureau of Standards as it relates to testing and energy efficiency for refrigerators and the AC units, right? So that is part of the landscape. But I think through all of the discussions we had today, we saw the very, very close link between energy efficiency and climate change. And climate change is something that we're grappling with. The TTBS offers services in ISO 14001 environmental management certification services. So we can certify companies to ISO 14001 2015 for energy management systems. And environmental management systems. And we understand how critical that is, especially also in Tobago. Something that has become very, very topical, unfortunately, is the whole question of environmental testing. And environmental testing as it relates to the sad situation that we had a couple of months ago with respect to the oil spillage. So the TTBS also offers environmental testing as it relates to industrial effluents. Tobago is also on a drive with respect to some level of industrialization, and we have to protect Tobago at all costs. And one of the effective measures to protect Tobago, to protect its environment, is through effluent testing for industries that want to develop in Tobago. Also, inland water. Industries can impact on the inland water in Tobago. So we also offer services as they relate to testing inland water. Again, the whole question of seawater and what would have happened earlier on, we also provide services there, and also with respect to recreational water. So that represents some of the services that we can offer in the area of environment. But I went, I think, in greater detail as it relates to water. As I'm here, I'm taking the opportunity to start to make the plug for another stakeholder meeting that we want to have in Tobago in October or November. So, Madam Councillor and Madam Administrator, we're looking at partnering with you all again with respect to a stakeholder meeting in October or November as it relates to a new national compulsory standard. And this is for general purpose cleaning, bleaching, and disinfectant products. I know there are a number of manufacturers in Tobago, and this stakeholder meeting and consultation will be of tremendous benefit, I think, to the sector. Right? So with that, trying to move along as quickly as possible, I will have ended my very, very short presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. So now we will have a video presentation of the TTBS Energy Efficiency Lighting Lab.
Trinidad and Tobago is doing its part in contributing towards the protection of the environment. In alignment with its mandate, the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards remains committed to providing quality testing services to our stakeholders, ensuring quality products for all consumers in the country. The Energy Efficiency Lighting Lab supports this by fostering the development of a robust quality infrastructure, which will ultimately improve the quality of products available to consumers in the region. In August 2020, the lab was commissioned through the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality and the Physikalisch-Technische Bundesanstalt under the Strengthening of Quality for Sustainable Energy in the Caribbean project. The Energy Efficiency Lighting Lab is equipped with cutting-edge equipment which utilizes colorimetry in its testing capabilities. The lab houses an integrating sphere where the light bulb is installed. When power is applied to the item, data is transferred through a fiber optic cable to the spectroradiometer and analyzer equipment cabinet. This data is then sent to specialized software to convert the data obtained and produce the characteristic information of the light bulb. This critical information is what is used to determine the brightness of the bulb, how much electricity is used, as well as how long the bulb will last. This is verified against the manufacturer's specifications to ensure a quality product is available to the consumer. The Energy Efficiency Lighting Lab bolsters the national and regional quality infrastructure by providing reliable testing services right here in Trinidad and Tobago.
We at the Lab Services Division, and by extension, the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, are committed to all our stakeholders and clients quality testing services, thus enforcing safe and reliable products to all our customers of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
All right, so we have reached the question and answer segment of this stakeholder engagement. If anyone has any questions for any particular member on the panel specifically, or any presentation that was made today? Any suggestions or comments to make? Sure, you can stand and give your name and the organization you represent, if so be. Take the mic, yeah.
Good morning. I am Alana Nadine Henry. I'm representing the Assembly Legislature. One question I have in mind is, where do we go from here? And the officer that showed about the AC and everything he showed, I am thinking, I have that in my home. What do I do now? When I walk out here, what do I do to help conserve, to save, reduce? So that's my two questions. What do I do with my home? And where do we go from here, even in the organization that I am working in?
Okay, Mr. Grant. Take it here, take the mic here.
All right, good morning, everyone. So one of the first things we want to put forward is that you don't go and rip out everything out your house. So the first thing we're saying is that your microwave, your TV, your fridge, when it comes to it's ending its end of use, you start to look for energy efficient appliances, right? Statistics or studies will show your AC and your lighting are two of the major products that consume a lot of energy. And then when you're consuming energy, you need to think smart. So let's say, for example, you have an AC. Do you really need to run it 12 hours for the day? You could probably run it for 6, right? I think Ms. Trim, she would contribute after she talked about making your home smart. So what I do, I can't sleep without the AC. So what I do, my home is smart. So I let the AC run for 2 hours. When it comes off, the room is properly sealed, so then the fan would come on, keep the space cool. And I would do that rotation, and I would actually see a lower electricity bill. Yeah? So, Ms. Trim?
Permit me to sit, please. Right, you have a good question of where do we go from here? And of course, we look at this stakeholder engagement or some of the contents from the engagement being penetrated in schools and other divisions. So, you know, parts of the THA. So that's one step, right? You spoke about your home. And I mean, just like Kevin, my house is also smart. My home is also smart. And I also actualize significant savings from energy efficiency. Kevin spoke about the AC. I mean, I have inverter type AC systems, and one of the cons to it is if it goes bad, the parts are very expensive. The cost to replace it is almost the cost of a new AC. But barring that, dryers, for example, I have a 110 volts dryer. So as Kevin said, they don't go and pretty much report everything. But as it comes to an end, you look at what you can use instead. So I have an inverter refrigerator. I have a 110 voltage dryer as opposed to a 220. All my lights are LEDs and they are smart systems whereby you can control everything from your phone, right? So while the capital cost or the initial cost to set up these things may be a bit high, it's not that high as in changing out some of your switches and even your plugs to make it smart. Thereby, if it is you are not using it, you take it off, you will save a lot, right? Because what Kevin and I didn't speak about, I've engaged with Kevin before with a lot of renewable energy technology, so we're very familiar. What we neglected to speak about is the phantom loads or ghost loads. So say, for example, you have something plugged in, but it's not in use. You still draw electricity from it, right? So that is why it is very important for conservation measures to take place, simple things as taking out the plugs out of the walls. That's very critical. What the smart technology will do is instead of having to unplug it, you can take so it shuts off from your phone. So you can do that with your televisions, you can do that with all your appliances. And if you're away from home, you'll be able to turn on and off your lights. So say, for example, instead of, I know in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a culture of leaving on a light when we're not there, because for a big period of time. But if you have the smart technology, you can actually schedule a light to come on at, say, 7 p.m. and take it off at about 2 p.m. And it makes it's also a point of security. I spoke briefly on the solar water heater. That is also a good option. The capital cost again is high, but heating and cooling, they are inductive loads or energy hugs. So if you are able to consider changing to solar water heater, you would actualize costs, or sometimes you have hybrid systems. I have a hybrid system. When the sun is very hot, I use the solar water heater. And when it's raining and overcast, I use electric heaters. So it has a twofold system. So there is a Department of Energy within the Tobago House of Assembly, right? This is now under the Office of the Chief Secretary. So you'll be rolling out more information like what you asked. And TTBS also has an office in Tobago now, so we have greater access to them. Right, I'm telling you all out, we have greater access to them, so definitely we'll make information more available, and we do intend to penetrate the schools as well, so the children can take it home to their parents. I hope that answers your question.
One of the things we have, once upon a time, not too long ago, I was working in the division of works. And usually we would work late when I was doing accounting executive then. But when we were leaving, the staff and I said, oh, let's turn off the lights. But then I realized it has no light switch. There's no light switch in any of the account section. And light runs whole night. So when I went to health to work, there is something that we have health had called switching it off. You have to take off the AC, your computer, and the lights. So how, because you're in a division and we're here because representing divisions. Therefore, if we are to start somewhere, yes, other than my home, because I just sleep with AC and fan, I'm a woman, sorry. And if we have to start somewhere representing the divisions, I know you're going into schools, but I want to go back and tell everybody we have to take off the light switches, you know, we have to take off this, but there are divisions that have no switches.
The response to that is, now that we are under the OCS, there will be a specific board, so we have to do policies to guide all divisions, and I would have mentioned that in my presentation, that there will be policies and regulatory framework that would guide that, and there would also be a phase-by-phase retrofitting. So in some cases where the buildings are old, you'll have to go in and do some retrofitting or implement some sort of smart system that would govern the efficiency of energy at divisions. But definitely you will see a lot of policies coming on stream. I don't know if you listened to the budget yesterday. So you would be seeing energy and environmental sustainability and climate mitigation and adaptation measures being implemented across divisions in the Tobago House of Assembly.
As Ms. Henry spoke about what obtains at Division of Infrastructure, and it's different to what obtains at the Division of Health. What it tells us that when the THA is entering or is negotiating with landlords or any agents, it means that the THA has to seek buildings for lease that are equipped differently. All right. So I hope we have procurement officers here. I see Mr. McCain. So kudos to health. I don't know if anyone else is here. I see Mrs. Neptune Jack, property management. So she has information to take back. And I hope there are the personnel here from other divisions that could take the message to administrators, heads of department, that when we are negotiating, there are other things that have to be put on the table. One is having smart buildings for use by the THA.
Thank you very much for your questions. Yes.
Okay. Good day, everyone. The LED and the CFL bulbs, I know, are very good products because I use them myself. However, the associated equipment that works with the LED and the CFL, what testing you all do on those, like, there are a lot of sensors on the market, 24-hour sensors that control the energy also by time, according to the lighting that we have. What testing do you all do on those? Because I know there are some of them that are very inefficient in terms of the times it brings on the light and the times it takes off the light. What testing you all do on those products on the market?
Hi, good day. So currently, we only test the lighting products. In terms of fixtures, we have no standards and we have no capabilities in terms of those types of products. But I mean, for TTBS, once you contact the office and you ask or you have complaints about these products, I mean, we could start to develop standards in terms of what you're seeing on the market, because not everything we could really see on the market and we will know that given issues or complaints. So if there's any complaints that you see or you have experienced, I mean, bringing it to the attention of TTBS, we could try to involve ourselves in trying to get international standards related to those products, and we could see how best we could facilitate in terms of requirements. But going forward in terms of testing, testing of products is pretty expensive. Infrastructure is expensive, and we need to see how feasible it is in terms of the testing capabilities of those types of products that have issues on the market. But what we can look forward to is in terms of looking at the labeling, and we could see that if there's international labs that could provide assistance to TTBS in terms of those products, then we could collaborate to see how best we could facilitate.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, we have an excellent relationship with the Trinidad and Tobago government electrical inspectorate. So they will sit on various committees as they relate to the standards development process. They are also very much involved with the wiring code. So they are involved with respect to developing the code, and they do sit on various code committees. So that's the extent. Yeah. Yes, of course, and okay. So thank you very much, and as I said, the ED is writing it down, and I am taking note of it. So that will be very, yeah, that'll be high on our agenda for the inclusion.
Any other questions? All right. Well, since there are no more questions or comments, I think we can have some closing remarks from our manager, Mr. Jared Maxwell. So I pass the mic back over to him.
Well, my closing remarks, first of all, takes a form of a very brief vote of thanks. First thing, Councillor Sitika Williams, your address was, incredibly enlightening, and especially where you went into the whole question of energy efficiency and our stewardship of the environment. So that was so very greatly appreciated, and we thank you. The administrator, Melissa James, Guy, you went in and you elucidated on the whole question of the TTBS being the guardians of quality. And thank you very much for that reminder. So that touched me, and also Mr. Trejo looked across to remind me, you see. All right, so timely and very well received. And also, again, that very powerful link you made between the energy efficiency and the link to the impact on climate change. So those comments have been well noted. Ms. Trim, all I can say is that your presentation was power-packed and very energy efficient. So all of the things that you hammered with respect to energy inefficiency is linked to energy efficiency, smart technology, the carbon footprint of both Tobago and Trinidad, and the THA's initiative with respect to leading by example, that leading by example program, that was very, very greatly appreciated. And I think once the THA takes the lead with respect to their program leading by example, I think it will trickle down throughout Tobago and will also set a good example for us in Trinidad. Also, I'd like to thank all of the presenters, Kimberly Bagaloo, Dudnat Singh, Kevin Grant, Clint Barnes, Mr. Jones, Glenwood Jones, a job incredibly well done. And also the support staff of the implementation division, I'd also want to thank them. And I want to, normally I don't pick out persons, but I want to pick out 3 persons. One, of course, is the Executive Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. He has been driving us with respect to more and more public outreach, reaching out through not only our stakeholder meetings, but smaller stakeholder meetings to get the word and the good news of the TTBS outside there. So I want to, thank him for that vision. The other persons I want to thank is Miss Keisha Charles Diamond. Keisha's here. Okay, well, she's probably working out front. Keisha's done a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes. She's been making all the calls to the Chief Secretary's office, to the Administrator's office. So that'll be the person that you'll be hearing on the phone all the time. So she's done a lot of work behind the scenes. So I really want to thank her for that great effort. And I also want to thank Joanne O'Connor. Joanne O'Connor is one of our clerk stenographers, and she has also been doing a lot of the calling and a lot of the arranging. And again, if you notice, they're not here, so they're somewhere around doing the good work of the TTBS. So I want to say a heartfelt thanks. And again, I think, it goes without saying to also thank our hosts, the Trinidad and the Tobago House of Assembly, for facilitating this engagement. And again, as I said, the future ones that we'll be coming to you all with. Thank you for being such a wonderful host, so very supportive in terms of the facilities you'll have made available for us, the transport, how to go about having these types of meetings in Tobago. So I want to thank each and every one of you all. So with that, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have some refreshments, so please don't leave. And also, we'd like to always have the opportunity to meet you all one-on-one, because I know some of the questions were few, so I know some people could be shy. So, the team here, we're willing to talk to you all on any issues that you all may have. So with that, I want to close today's proceedings, and thank you very much again for your time.